We depend on an external substance to give us that internal fortitude that already exists within us.
This is the bottom line, is that I would always rather get high and avoid my problems. I start to feel this euphoria that I've never felt before, and my brain unlocks, and I feel like I can read the dictionary in 5 minutes.
Especially if you've got, addiction history, you will not be able to take it.
But you know what? The bottom line is every time I do the things that I don't want to do, those are the best things for me. And usually good things happen when I do that.
Okay, welcome into the Cappy Hour Extravaganza with my guest today, Michael Bugary. Hey, Michael.
Hey, how you doing?
Excellent. Michael's joining us today from Ohio, and he's now 5 years sober and of all substances and medication, and is a speaker and author and loves to share his story to help others. So thanks for joining me today, Michael. And first, I want to start right with the Adderall thing, because I did what I call my 7-week Adderall experiment about a year ago. I only learned my ADD through, and I just call it ADD for short, through getting sober.
Okay.
I'm now almost 2.5 years. I once was sober 3.5 years, about 12 years ago that started. But I could never get productive. And then I realized I was self-medicating for all these years, even when alcohol stopped working, to try to be productive. Every day the voice would talk me into drinking for productivity in my later years of drinking. And so once I got sober, I still wasn't getting any more productive. And then my therapist kept insisting I had ADD. So I tried Adderall for 7 weeks and learned why my addiction friends can't take it. I thought it made them want to drink, but it made me want to abuse it. My favorite meme says, "Oh, there's a pill that'll cure addiction. I wonder what 2 of them will do." So
exactly. Yeah.
So I'd love to hear about yours. And I'll just finish saying I say 7 weeks because I ran out a week early in the second month. And luckily I was going on vacation, which enabled me to break the cycle because I didn't need it to be productive on vacation. So,
well, that's 5 weeks later. 5 weeks later than I would have, So I would have ran out. Yeah. So, it's when you hear, I don't know if you've heard alcoholics speak, or when they're sober, they say they have that, like when they first drank alcohol, they had that aha moment where this is what they've been looking for. Right? This is that, that thing to take away their inhibitions and their fears, and it made them feel different and feel like this is what they've needed. And I didn't have that with alcohol. I had that with Adderall. I remember, it's a really funny story. I was my junior year in college. I had gotten hurt. I played at UC Berkeley, and I had gotten hurt a few times my freshman and sophomore year. So I was a big time prospect out of high school, and so I hadn't played much. And I was at that point where I didn't go to Berkeley for the academics. I went there to be a baseball player. To stepping stone to the major leagues. And I was looking for these edges, and I got training, and I was going into my junior year, and I needed to make a change. And I was introduced to Adderall for the first time. And I had always been diagnosed with ADD in the past, but I never saw a doctor for it or anything. Baseball kind of kept me focused, and so I tried it from a friend. It was in the semester. It was at the end of the semester before the spring. So before the Christmas break. It was and it was for finals, and I was taking this class, and it was my favorite class at Berkeley. It was called the History of Animals, and more of my story. I'm a big animal guy. History of Animals and Human Beings, and over the course of history. And my project was on cats, like how they were blamed for the Black Plague, and how they were deities in Egypt, and that kind of thing. So I was to present a project in front of the group on that, and I had taken an Adderall before. I'd never taken it before, and I'm one of those addicts to where if somebody gives me a pill, I don't like look it up or wonder what it's going to do to me. I just take it. I just say, hey, tell me what it's going to do to me. I'll take it. So in the middle of the class, right before I'm about to present, I start to feel this euphoria that I've never felt before, and my brain unlocks, and I feel like I can read the dictionary in 5 minutes, and I get up there and to speak, and I know everything about cats. I mean, I remember all these innocuous details about my studies, and my partner that was with me didn't get to say a word because I was just going on and on and on. And the professor ended up having to shut me up. But but I ended up getting an A in that class, and then I just couldn't wait to use it on the field because alcohol never helped me on the field, right? With baseball, then baseball's all I cared about. But this could give me that focus, and I went out that the next day and had a scrimmage, and I pitched the best game of my life, and I went on to have a really successful junior season with it. And so what Adderall, when I take something and it gives me a result, like I always need something for something. Like that's how my story, that's my pattern in my life of needing something for something. And so Adderall did that for me. And then it was just from then on, I couldn't pitch without it. I couldn't study without it. I couldn't do anything because it showed me like the highest level what I could be with it. And so it just became that thing for me. And it was just an addiction that I got to that I just didn't understand. So from then on, every inning I pitched, I needed it from then on to the pros. And it just took a hold of me. And the tricky thing about Adderall is that it convinced me that I could always take it for the rest of my life, that my problem later on was opiates or alcohol or not. Adderall was what I needed because I couldn't function without it. And I always hid that secret. So yeah, that's the beginning of it, but there's a little more to it, but yeah.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. We could probably talk the whole podcast about it because it's just bananas, man. I took the extended release version, which I thought like normal extended release, it took days, if not a week to get in my system. And I was flying high an hour later.
Right,
I thought
yeah.
I happened to drink full calf coffee that day. I usually drink half calf. I thought I just had, it was from that. And I had more than usual. I couldn't believe it. And I was up till, I didn't eat dinner. I was up till 2 a.m. I didn't move from my computer standing up, which I like to work till 2 a.m. Then I ate dinner. Then I went back on my computer for a couple more hours. I mean, absolutely crazy. And that was just on 20 milligrams.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about, I know you've taken much more, but that's what made me fully understand what a normal brain must feel like, maybe even beyond a normal brain.
Yeah.
But I was, I described it as, I felt like I had a work ethic for the first time in forever. Although just when it came to doing work I didn't want to do. I mean, I was very disciplined in other areas. I'm a runner, things like that. But I could not be disciplined in terms of just, focusing on the work I didn't want to do.
It made everything enjoyable. It made every little task enjoyable. And yeah, it really did. And I can't lie. I still love it. You know what I mean? I'm always going to love it. I just know what it does to me. And I have to always recognize the consequences of it, because for me, it always leads me back to opiates, because I end up taking way too much, and then I just feel crummy, and then I go get what I really want, So it's dangerous. It's a slippery slope, and the biggest the thing that I'm most grateful, and it took me the longest to get past that addiction over anything else, because I just didn't see it as a problem for so long, and the best thing because I never thought I could. I went back to college and got a 4.0 and graduated. I never thought I could do that without Adderall. I wrote a book without Adderall. I didn't think that I was capable of doing these things, and what I had to do to channel my mind and focus was to learn how to meditate. And for those of us with ADHD, with racing minds and things that are always going on and unable to concentrate, meditation is the best type of Adderall. It's just really hard, and it takes a long time, and you really got to focus and be into it. And I was always one of those people that said, hey, you know what? I can't meditate because I can't sit still. But I promise you, if you're one of those people, you can. You just got to do it, and you just got to keep doing it. And it takes time. But at this point, I probably meditated more hours than I have practicing baseball.
Wow. That is impressive. That is very impressive. Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad. I heard a woman on a sobriety call. She once said, she goes, so funny. People say, oh, I can't meditate because I can't focus. My mind wanders. She goes, that's what meditation is. It's just letting your mind wander. If you go off, just catch yourself and then try to go back on in terms of meditating. But it's fine to let it happen. And like everything, it just takes time. It's crazy. I'm very lucky. I fell into learning transcendental meditation a while back. And that has been great for me, but I don't do it nearly as much as I would like to, but it takes discipline, and you got to make the time to do it. It's all about self-care, right? I mean, that's
well, that's the biggest thing for addicts is creating that routine, creating that discipline, because right? As addicts, we can always find, and for me, it's a pattern in my life too, of always finding motivation to prove somebody wrong, motivation from a pretty girl, right? A motivation from this, motivation from that. But for me, that motivation is always fleeting, because when I get that, accomplish that goal, then I get stagnant again. Right. And then I'm always looking for self-worth outside of myself when I do that. But when I create discipline, I build small wins up every day, and then I can build my self-worth from within. So I don't need to I can be myself at the risk of other people's approval. And that's the most important thing for me, especially as an addict in recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Your book is very inspiring. It's, we'll definitely circle back at the end and put a link in the show notes, but, it's called The Disease of Me, and it's phenomenal. And I'll tell you, he sent me a Word version, and I cut and pasted half the book into my notes. It's insane. It really is so good. And I'll just read the quick description. It's about terminal uniqueness, a feeling that he is different, an innate belief that he is somehow special. And that's a term that I'd only heard once before, but I do think that's an interesting term. And I've still got more to say about Adderall, but yeah, why don't you kind of describe what that actually means?
Yeah. So, I think it's twofold, right? It's right. I'm always going to feel that need to be different and special, or like, that mindset of where, if you, all these bad things that happen to you, you would be an addict too, or I'm always going to go into rooms of people and I'm going to look for the differences and not the similarities, right? That's all it is. It's terminal. It's the way that I think. And how I changed that it helping by helping other people and getting outside of myself and my relationship with God. But yeah, it's just right. It's that it means really that I'm always and I am and I will always be my biggest problem. Right. It's my mindset of selfishness. Right. It doesn't mean just being selfish. It means that I have a selfish way of thought in everything that I do. And so yeah, just terminal uniqueness is a term where I constantly feel like the world revolves around me, right? And that affects me in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, you're amazingly candid about that. And despite all the work you've done, it sounds like you even still struggle with that. So I'd love to talk more about that. But, one thing I identified with, you said you felt you either felt or still feel both superiority and inferiority. Superiority over the masses, yet inferior to the people you deemed as the top 1% of the social hierarchy. And I can completely relate to that. I was kind of shunned by the cool kids. I grew up in the neighborhood with one of the cool kids. We were best friends till high school, and then he kind of left me in the dust. And so it was always that top of the class cool kids that I always felt inferior to, but then felt superior over, I call that the A crowd, but then I always felt superior over the B and C crowd. And for that reason, I was always a misfit. So I didn't think mention being a misfit, but did you feel that as well? That's very common for ADDers as well.
Yeah. I felt that somewhere in the middle, but you think about how insane that is, and going by that thought process and going back to the terminal uniqueness, right? It's that we have to categorize ourselves and find that place, but it's also that sense of just not having that self-worth from the inside, right? It's because I have to, this is this constant need to place myself somewhere, right? And then my constant need to prove myself to that top echelon of people, because that's where I think I belong, but I don't know if I belong there, but I should belong there. Right. So it's the constant need to compare themselves, because I'm definitely better than these people. I know that. Right. I just know that. But it's just constant, to prove myself and challenge myself and test myself. And then every time I do, and I feel like I'm amongst them, I get complacent. And then something happens where, an injury or whatever happens, that I'm back down again, then I'm caught up again. So I feel that. I do feel like I was a misfit and different. And like in part of my book, I talk about where that coach told me that I wasn't good enough early on, and I had to prove myself in that way and become the best player. But even when I was up there, I always just felt like I had to manufacture that confidence and manufacture that greatness I thought I had. It was never just natural to me. And so he's exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, such a part of recovery is overcoming self-loathing and gaining self-love, and ultimately just not caring what other people think of you. It's emotional maturity is the term I learned, or emotional immaturity is, putting your whole value based on what you think others think of you. And it's such an unhealthy mindset. And that's why we are the luckiest. I am a huge proponent of that. A book, which you may or may not be familiar with, and it's just so true. And you talk in your book as well about how much of a gratitude practice you've gained throughout this whole process, right? I mean,
that's exactly what it is. I have to change my currency from attention to gratitude. When I change my currency from getting attention from other people and finding my place and finding about me, when I change that to them being thankful for everything that I've given and thankful for my relationships and my connection, everything changes, right? Because I just have to change that meter of my values, and that's the biggest thing, and that's the hardest thing to do. But it takes practice. Gratitude is an action word, and it takes practice.
Yeah, it really does, man. It does take work, and the work works. And, no one ever explains what the work really is, except Dr. Cappy here. And it's spiritual growth and personal development.
Yeah.
And that's why we are the luckiest. It's work everybody needs to do. We're just called to do it because of our little addiction issues in order to learn how to gain emotional sobriety and enjoy life sober, and it does. It includes therapy, coaching, sharing, meditation, gratitude practice. I actually have a list of about 100 things available now.
It's all the work that you don't get credit for. And that's why it's so important to change that currency, right? To not expecting credit or expecting something out of it. Just being grateful that you get to do it, right? That's the biggest thing. So that's what I had to, because I always wanted people to acknowledge me for my hard work on the baseball field or acknowledge me from the way that I look in the weight room and how I did. I always wanted that. But I realized that the most important thing for me is to do the work and not to get credit for it, right? Because nobody's ever going to know. Like, I had a massive brain tumor the size of a tennis ball in my central nervous system, and I can do all these things now. Olympic lifting weight. I'm stronger than I was when I played, and nobody will ever understand the amount of pain, suffering, work that I had to do to get there. And they're not supposed to, and that's okay. And sometimes it's difficult because I think, man, I should be way more well known for all the things that I've done through. That's my mindset thinking. Like, there's not many people in the world that have done what I've done, and I get to that place where I start to think like that, and that puts me in a bad place, because then I start to compare again. Then I start to do these things, and when I'm in that calamity of comparison that I call it, right, that's when I start to get sick again, and that's when my behavior changes, and that's when I get close to a relapse with my behavior. So I have to watch that. And that's constant, especially in this field that I'm in now, where I'm speaking, I'm comparing myself to all these other speakers and all these other things going on, and I'm putting myself out there into the world and trying to do something special, and it's challenging. I just have to. I'm my biggest enemy, right? It's me, and I have to constantly check myself, and that's part of recovery is being able to have that self-awareness and know your patterns and know who you are, because really what it is, like you said, it's just a journey of self-discovery. Right? Self-discovery is really what it is. I have to know me, and I have to accept me, right? Good, bad, and indifferent.
Yep. Yeah. I interviewed a woman who's 30 years sober. She's a big AA proponent, and she does an inventory every day to this day, 30 years in. Yeah. And she does a daily inventory, which is one of the steps, right? I'm not an AA guy. Yeah. I've always done online sobriety communities, but that's just amazing. But it's so wise, because it's true. You have to keep yourself in check. We will forget, and we will stray. I mean, it's so easy, as an author I know says, to fall into the well-worn grooves of self-reliance and just get sober in the background. And that leads to isolation, which leads to relapse. You've got to do the work for life. Right?
Yeah, I have to at the end of the day, really revisit my conversations and my actions and things that I did and why I did them, and just kind of see inventory in that way. I can't say I'm like her, and that's important for some people. And I have things that I do every day, but I have to revisit my conversations and just to play them over in my head, because a lot of things like empathy and listening and all these other habits that it takes to be like a good communicator and a good person are not natural to me. And so I have to replay that and practice that and make sure that I'm doing the things with my motives. My motives are correct.
Yep. Yeah. So important. It's important to talk about it, which is some of us do in community, and it's great you do it just through. It seems more so through public speaking and service, which is phenomenal. And yeah, you talk about how a lot of people want to talk about your baseball career and think that's the most impressive part of you, but I think you even said that's the least impressive. Really, I mean, it's really easier to rehab from a baseball injury than to rehab from addiction, right?
Yeah, and well, I think it's like I said too. It's easier to quantify the work it takes to be a professional athlete than it takes to get over like heroin and Adderall and brain cancer. It's hard to like put that into perspective as it is with playing sports. So I get it, but yeah, I definitely think that the baseball is the least impressive thing that I've done in terms of it. But that goes back to the credit part I was talking about, right? I have to recognize, hey, I have to see it from other people's point of view and realize, hey, okay, I'll talk about baseball. All right, fine. Even though I don't always want to, but I get it. I get it. So.
Yeah. My biggest question on baseball was about the Adderall, because I learned, again, this was last year, that it for the first time in my life gave me hand-eye coordination, which I had already surmised, figured out on my own. I'm sure it's out there on the internet, but that must be and part of ADD as well, because I can remind myself, I can say it out loud every 2 seconds while I'm playing, say, pickleball. Look at the ball, look at the ball, look at the ball. I still will not look at the ball. People might be like, where do you look? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I look towards the ball, but I am not looking at the ball. And when I do, I hit a perfect shot almost every time. So when I was on Adderall, I was getting birdies in my golf league. I don't get birdies, although I am a good player, but I do not get birdies. And I was getting it was the best streak of golf in my life and pickleball. So how does it work with what are the rules around Adderall with sports?
Oh, they're shady. I mean, I think as baseball players, we're always addicted to something because the games are so long and the season's so long and it's such a grind, and such a mental game, and so there's always going to be that way to find edges and I don't know what they are now, but back then, as long as you had a prescription, with a doctor there wasn't too many questions asked, but I definitely think that they keep tabs on it and make sure that players aren't abusing it. And I was one of those guys that I would always be asking for my prescription early or, and I think they took notice to that too. But I think that, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I knew some players that use it, and it's pretty common. Back in the day where they used to use greenies, which are amphetamines. I don't know if you heard of that, but players used to use those a lot. Professional players, which is the same kind of thing, but it's all some sort of amphetamine. But it definitely, you're right, it definitely helps. It made me a lot more focused. It made me just intense and like, I wouldn't say violent, but like aggressive. Aggressive when I played, and it made me such a better relief pitcher. But there's always a catch, right? There's always a catch, and you don't know what you're doing to yourself physically by putting that kind of stress on, every single time, and you don't know, and then you start taking more. You don't know how it messes up your hydration or your recovery or not your sleep. There's just so many. There's too much of anything. Too much of any good thing there's always a catch, And there was a big catch to me where I ended up having to take more, and then I had to take them at night during night games, and then I had to end up going out to the bars after games because I can't sleep, and drinking enough alcohol will help me pass out. So there's that, and then you look like you don't really care because you're out drinking. There's just so many things to it that offset that brilliance that it can give you.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you remind me, you talked about some of the drugs you took. You snored or smoked them, but never swallowed them. And I learned that. I think I had a friend who was a nurse who once told me that, something I needed to take to get into my bloodstream quickly. She was like, well, just put it under your tongue. Shouldn't even tell people this tip. So ever since then, that's how I've always taken them, because never mind that. Well, the Adderall, but also I took Klonopin for anxiety. I could never just take it normally. Even melatonin now, I like the dissolvable form where you can just stick it under your tongue, So I thought that was funny when you said I never swallowed, because it feels like it's going to take too long, right?
Yeah, I take some mild medications now, and I make sure that I always, for years, I have to swallow it like a normal person would do. Yeah, I do now. Like, so yeah, I get it.
That is interesting. And yeah, and you talked about, Adderall made me a better person. Interesting.
Yeah.
Smarter and more focused. Like alcohol, it masked a lot of my insecurities and made me feel like a better baseball player. So that's interesting. When I was on my experiment, I was very candid about it in my sobriety community. And a guy said to me, "Hey, just be careful." It left me without my mouth had no filter.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what he meant at first. In fact, I thought he gave him the dry mouth because I got severe dry mouth from that.
Sure.
I don't know about you. But no, he then went on to say how he basically started mouthing off so much that he eventually got fired by his law firm. So it does give you that element, right, of fearlessness, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you think, right? You believe that you're a problem solver now, and you got all these answers and things too, and right? And you can come off in a wrong, different way, and you want to insert yourself in different ways, And that's how you couldn't shut me up when I was on it, People, my friends, looking back, they didn't even like to be around me because I get philosophical, and I consider myself a pretty big ladies' man back in the day, And then girls would say, I'd be on Adderall and a little bit drunk, and girls would say, "Yeah, he's great until he opens his mouth," and because because you think you're like some sort of philosopher when you're on it, and you just got all these answers, and you just it's crazy. Like I'm so glad I don't have that grip on me anymore. It took a long time, but yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, and isn't that funny? I'm so glad you said that because we sound like we're glorifying it. Yet, no, do not. It is such an addictive drug. And especially if you've got, addiction history, you will not be able to take it. There are those who are able to. I don't know how. I do know some friends that are able to, but it's very, very dangerous, especially Adderall, for the record.
Yeah.
And that's the one I chose. I've since learned Vyvanse, at least, is more of a smoother release, if you will. But it's still.
For me, any of those things, they all do the same thing. And by no means am I like I said, absolutely not. It is the most damaging thing I could possibly do to myself, and it ruined my life for sure. What it is that the things that I'm talking about is that delusion of what I thought it did. It's the delusion of who I thought it made me. What it really did was made me abrasive. It made me a loudmouth. It made me a know-it-all. It made me just a conceited. I didn't listen to anybody because I was always thinking about what I want to say next, and it made me unlikable in so many ways. And sure, it maybe helped me on the baseball field for a little while, but it really did it made people not want to be around me.
It's crazy. It's crazy how that works. And I'm glad you also touched on how you have gotten productive on your own, which I am in the throes of working on that now, because it also involves doing the work. It's a different kind of work. You touched on it. Involves routines is a huge part of it. For me, it's also calendaring, very strict calendaring and time management and work like that I just still don't want to do.
Yeah, I suck at it. I hate it. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to hire a team right now so I can just be the show pony. I agree. Yeah, it's tough. It's all of it. It is really tough to do. But you know what? The bottom line is every time I do the things that I don't want to do, those are the best things for me. And usually good things happen when I do that. Good things happen when I show up and I try my best and I just do the things that I don't want to do. And I struggle with it every day. I just started my LLC. I'm doing all this clerical stuff and scheduling, and I can't stand all of the taxes and stuff and all my expenses and the spreadsheets, and it's the last thing that I want to do. That's all the stuff that I stink at, but I got to do it, and that's part of it. I think the bottom line, I just got to grow up, right? That's the thing. I still want to just do things my way and do the things that I want to do, but then I got to realize, where did just doing the things that I want to do get me? It got me spiritually, mentally, and physically broken. Crying alone, almost dead. So I got to remember that I got to take suggestions and I got to do the things that I don't want to do. And I got to be uncomfortable because that's where I grow.
Yeah. Yep. It's so true. I lost my train of thought there, but I know what it was. Yeah, I read recently, administrative duties is where ADD careers go to die. You know,
right.
we
Yeah.
we need
Yeah.
that constant novelty, and I'm struggling with that now because I love that show pony. I want to be the show pony myself. You know, I want to run an online community and coaching business, but I'm struggling with doing all the underlying plumbing to get all that going. So I'm finally throwing up my, white flag and going to hire a virtual assistant to help me with that stuff.
Yeah. I got to get like a Gen Zer to like tag along with me everywhere I go to do all the technical stuff, and I'm working on it, so I'm on the verge of hiring a marketing team. So I know that's going to help me a lot. I think, but that's part of it, right? That's recognizing like, hey, I got strengths and I got weaknesses. I accept me for me as who I am. And I am one of those people that, look, this is the bottom line, is that I would always rather get high and avoid my problems. When these things pile up and these difficult tasks that are like you're talking about, all that, the plumbing and the clerical work and all that stuff, when these things pile up on me, what I want to do is I want to escape and I want to go get high. That's what I want to do. That's the first instinct in my mind, and that's how it's always going to be. And I have to remember that. Then that thought, I don't do that today because I recognize it as a pattern of mine, and so I have to always remember those patterns and remember who I am. But at the same time, I can then identify my weaknesses and my strengths and know, hey, I'm not the best in this area. Maybe this area isn't great for me. So I can find people around me. I can create a system to where that I can create people to help me, right? Because the biggest thing for me was always asking for help, right? The old saying is that those who need it the most, those who don't ask for help need it the most, right? And so I know how to ask for help now and to admit where I'm wrong and admit where I have flaws and admit those things that I never wanted to admit before because I never wanted to feel weak, right? That's the thing is, right? It's that comparison of that, right? I can't show any weakness because I'm this top 1%. But now I can show these weaknesses and I can laugh at them and we can have these conversations because it's okay that I'm not perfect, right? And I don't self-loathe anymore. And so I have to recognize those things. When I can do that, then I can ask for help. And I think that's part of it for everybody, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you talk in your book about how we're in a society hell bent on the eradication of pain, and we're all pumped with medications in the aspiration to live pain-free lives. And it's so true. And of course, recovery is all about getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. Yeah. And then once you get there, it's not so bad, right? I say difficult conversations and things just become conversations and things, right? I mean, haven't you found that to be the case?
Yeah. I think where you avoid a lot pain, right? It's about managing my pain for me, right? The idea that there's never going to be any pain is crazy, right? I can take all these things and life is pain, right? Everything that we do is mental, it's physical, it's hardship, it's trials, it's tribulations. That's all a form of pain. Physical, we all have chronic physical things that we deal with. We're never going to eliminate it. We have to domesticate it, right? We have to manage it. Yeah, and when I do, like, I don't create those scenarios. Like when I think about having a difficult conversation with somebody, I create that scenario already in my head where I know what's going to happen. We're going to fight about it. We're going to disagree. We're going to hate on it. But in reality, when I show up and just try my best and I take the risk, right, to share the truth, because the truth is the risk. You don't know what's going to happen. But when I share that truth and I be honest, what I often realize is that we have so many more commonalities than we do differences. So we can always find that common ground because we can talk about it. But if I'm lying, right, you already, you don't know you already know what's going to happen, and you're either going to believe me or you're not, right? But with the truth, it's scary sometimes. But that's how you have those open conversations, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, the things I used to drink for, because I made everything life and death, every conversation, every interview, I drank for, because I made it life and death. I've got to get this job. And it's just so crazy. And now I literally remind myself that the worst case of anything is I drop dead in the middle of it. And anything short of that is okay. So easier said than done to get into that mindset, but you can get there. You know, just like not caring what other people think, you can get there, and it's so freeing.
And that's the beauty of being a recovering addict, is that, you know, you've gone through hell, so you have like this unique chance of redemption. You have this unique chance to see how many failures that you've had, right? You've seen so many failures, and you've realized that those failures, you've learned so much from them. When you're actually in recovery and you're actually working on yourself and you're actually working to get better, you've seen I had a lot of great times, a lot of good times, but I don't really remember a lot of them. I didn't learn anything from them. You know, I had a good time, but those failures and the bad things that happened to me, that's what I learned the most. So if I'm showing up to do something that's important, and the worst thing that can happen, maybe die right in the middle of it. That's probably worse. But if the worst thing that can happen is I fail and I learn something, that's, you know, then why not do it? Right. So that, I think once I recognize that aspect of it, I take a lot more risks, and I put myself out there a lot more, and I'll get in front of a million people. I don't care. You know, what's the worst that can happen? Right.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I always say you got to get outside your comfort zone, but stay inside your strength zone, especially in early to mid sobriety. You know, don't push that strength zone. That's what leads to, you know, I'm just going to drink tonight. But it's just amazing how much your comfort and your strength zone expands.
Takes a little time. Yes, takes a little time. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, stay sober, stay patient, and embrace the tensions, embrace the fear. That creates resilience, which creates greatness. I mean, resilience is the key to life. The key to happiness.
I share this moment. I speak at a lot of big recovery centers and treatment centers, sometimes in front of 200 or 300 patients, and I share with them, like, I remember when I was sitting in your seat, and we do, like, say we're in an AA meeting and we do readings, like you go up and read the steps, or you read in front of everybody. When I was sitting there 20 days sober or whatever it was, I didn't want to do the readings. The last things that I wanted to do was get up in front of people and talk about my worst things or share my stories. And I didn't want to do any of that. I had no interest in it. I wanted nothing to do with it. Then a year and a half later, I want to be a motivational speaker in front of everybody. Like, you know what I mean? So how much things can change, thoughts can change, and those feelings that we have early on are just they're fleeting feelings, and they're just, you know, all these defense mechanisms and mental gymnastics we're trying to do to create in our own mind to justify our behaviors and stuff. But like you said, it's just staying with the course, showing up, and just trying your best, and getting knocked down and getting back up again. That's the hardest part.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same way. I didn't share when I first joined sobriety communities. I didn't share for 3 months. I was just a learner. I always say not a lurker, as people call themselves, but I was a learner. And now I'm a sharing machine, you know, and I'm still even a little hesitant. My tricky brain almost still tries to talk me out of it every time. But then once I open my mouth, I love it. But I was never like that. I was not a public speaker or anything. This is all just sober confidence speaking. Yeah. You know, we all are so much stronger than we give ourselves credit for. You know, it hit me recently. We're not alcoholics. We're dependaholics. We depend on, and you touch on this in your book. We depend on an external substance to give us that internal fortitude that already exists within us. We've just got to give ourselves the chance to prove it to ourselves, you know. But when you're in the throes of addiction and in being brainwashed, you know, that's easier said than done.
Absolutely.
Because you're at the mercy of your midbrain, because your prefrontal cortex is just so weak from all the brain damage that it literally, I talk about this all the time. It shuts down. When you get a craving, your brain releases a little bit of dopamine to get you to seek more, and your cortex shuts down, and you're at the mercy of your midbrain. And that's another thing that the work does, is it strengthens your cortex to fight off your midbrain. And that is also the key to life. So you just got to break the cycle to get it going. Ideally before a true rock bottom. But, and I love, you talked about the need to feel 100% all the time fueled your Adderall and opiate addiction. And you never understood that it was okay to have good days and not so good days.
Yeah.
I mean, love that, right?
Well, I mean, brain cancer taught me that. Having chronic nerve pain, I still deal with it. I have, the type of the tumor that I had, the medulloblastoma, is a brain tumor of the central nervous system, and the chemotherapy and radiation that I got was just really nasty, and my percentages weren't good to live. And what the doctors weren't thinking much about side effects or anything. They were just thinking about saving my life now, And so I just had this I have intense nerve pain all over my body, peripheral neuropathy, nerve pain. I never experienced nerve pain before, how bad it was in my fingertips and toes and in my head. And so I live with headaches and ear stuff now and toe stuff and finger stuff. And so, you learned, like I said, managing pain, but I learned, hey, I'm not always going to feel good, but that's not an excuse to try to make myself feel good. I got to manage it, and I manage it through meditation, exercise, eating right, helping other people. Because when I help other people, then I realize my problems aren't so big. But that brain cancer just taught me so much about, not being 100% all the time and not being, mentally there. Even my brain doesn't always work right when I'm speaking or talking, but I just, I can't pick at it. I just got to show up and try my best and be prepared and do all the little things that help it. So you're absolutely right. I think, yeah, I mean, now it's just like I just hope for like at least one good day a month, but I'm grateful. I've learned to be grateful with my pain. I've learned to sit in it. I've learned to appreciate it. It heals me. It shows me that I'm alive, and it's just a good thing. I'm just so grateful to feel today. I can feel everything.
Yeah, man, I feel your pain and you're numb, because I actually have alcoholic neuropathy, which is, is a thing, because I was glad to see you mention that in the book. So I can't compete, I'm sure, with the level that you have it. But yeah, my heels started with one, was numb all the time. Then when I quit drinking, it seemed to go away. And now it's come back with a vengeance in both heels. And I finally have now just saw my doctor and got a bunch of blood tests. And I even seem to have an additional rare foot condition where my toes are always burning if I go into the slightest warm environments. And
I know, I get that. Yeah, I get it.
It's brutal. Yeah, I'm now doing PSAs that reminding people alcohol is toxic to the nerves. It's really toxic to your own body. In fact, the word intoxicated means into poison. It means to poison. I couldn't believe I came up. That hit me. Well, I Googled it on my own. Toxic is just right there in plain sight in the word intoxicated, but nobody thinks about it.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Absolutely, it's poison. Yeah.
And I half joke. I say to people, "It's too late for me, but save yourselves, because it is going to get worse." And I'm a big runner, and now it really hurts me to run. And it's going to get worse to the point I may not be able to. And yeah, you should. I actually brought some show and tell stuff. I've got, I'm going back to the doctor to get the results. But in the meantime, she recommended this capsaicin cream, which is like from chili peppers. It literally like burns. It burned your feet. They warn you to put it on lightly. And I did it once and it seemed fine. So I put way more on. Yeah, it burns. And then
that's my nightmare thinking about that. Yeah, I know. I do like yoga, and I did a little bit of jiu-jitsu before too, and I do some things. Anything where I have to do bare feet, like on a mat, it just kills me. It hurts so bad. I can't spread my toes out and grip them. I mean, I run a lot now too and do stuff, and I've gotten most of my healing back, but it's just really painful. Like for so long, my foot just felt like this, right? I had no digits, no toes, nothing, and I've learned how to slowly, grip them and move them, but it's still just incredibly painful all the time. And the worst part is it goes up and then it gives me a headache, because it's all, your nerves are all connected. I thinking about that burning sensation of the cream, I'm just like, or stubbing my toe, that nightmare. Yeah, you can. That's why I stopped jiu-jitsu, because you can pin me just by grabbing my pinky toe. You can just make me tap. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's great. Well, listen, now that we're friends, I'm gonna send you a link for this, because they just say it takes 3-4 days to get used to. And I've since put on a lot less. And that's just my toes that, burned pretty much all night the first night I put it on. My heels, I can lather it on and totally fine. And I swear to you, after just, seems crazy, could be mental, placebo, but after just the first night, the pain in my heels seemed much less. And now about a week in, it seems way less. So I also haven't had time to push it as much. but I went on a run last night, pretty much pain-free. So you'll be hearing from me. Plus I have other kinds of creams lotions to counteract it. I've got a magnesium lotion now. I've got a menthol one. So, I've got ice gel socks for my hot feet. I'll spare you that. I was going to do a show and tell with that, but got to keep them in the freezer and then they'll freeze.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I called it hot foot syndrome all these years, and now I find out.
I went through that phase too. I had all kinds of contraptions and things I had to do for years. I get it, to find what works. I get it.
That's crazy. Yeah. So I want to talk more about your tumor and some of the things you did mentally to help overcome that. But I definitely want to hit on what you do for meditation. And before I hit on that, I want to ask you, have you done any kind of breath work?
Yeah, I do that with the meditation. I do a lot of that. I've done a lot of work in the sauna, breathing through my nose when it's uncomfortable. I do a lot of work, learning to breathe through my nose. I didn't go through that. I don't know if you heard that like hostage tape stuff where they tape your mouth and you need to sleep. And I never did anything like that. Right. I think that was a little bit too intense for me, but I learned how to breathe through my nose a lot and to slow control my breathing. And, I think I did a lot of that with baseball, with visualizing, before I pitched, visualizing before the game and meditating. So that helped me a lot, but I did. And being an athlete in high tense situations, you really learn how to breathe and control your breathing. So that wasn't too hard for me. But with the meditation, I started by doing guided body scans. Because like I said, with the ADD, I needed somebody to tell me somebody to tell me where to focus on, and for a while, and that for years, or somebody where I just guided through body scans and just learning how to breathe through each individual part of my body and just to focus on it. And that really helped me a lot.
Interesting. And how long do you meditate per day?
Right now, about 15. Right now, I do about 15 minutes. But in the past, because I'm just maintenance right now. For me, it's maintenance. I do it in the morning. But in the past, I would do it be an hour and a half. Half an hour. I would do it a lot, especially when I was healing my nerve damage through like sending. I wrote about it a lot. Sending those signals into my fingers and toes. I would meditate for 2 hours sometimes, because it was the only time where I felt okay. I felt like I was focused, and I felt like I could focus on the pain and sit in it. It was the only time that I got any peace, any sleep, or I was just in so much pain all the time. And by really learning to sit in and focus on it, that's why I did it for so long.
Wow. That is, phenomenal. I can't recommend it enough. And I know I was as skeptical as other people about the power of meditation, but it is so, so powerful. Transcendental, again, I learned that it's basically just chanting a mantra. They give you a secret mantra you're supposed to never tell anyone, and I never have. I tell people something similar that sounds like it, but for 20 minutes, and it's been such a life changer for me. I mean, it basically turns often into a power nap, especially in my drinking days. Yeah. But even that was a godsend when I had to be somewhere in an hour and I felt awful, and it would just get me into a power nap. So I think it's worth every penny. That I paid about $500 for. It might even cost more than that, but I highly recommend it. And then breath work. I recently interviewed a guy, it hasn't even aired yet, named JP, Breathe with JP. Cremy is his last name. Cremy, like Jimmy. And 30 minutes of taking 2 breaths in through the stomach and chest, and then breath out for 30 minutes. And that is work, at least the first time you do it. It feels like forever. But he's like, you're going to get emotional. At the end of this, you're going to feel empowered. I was so skeptical, and I felt it all, man. It was amazing. So I'm such more of a believer even now in breath work than ever. I heard a woman say it's the easiest life hack is breath work. I mean, you can do much less than that, just box breathing, like 4 breaths in and out. But it's so important to just reset your nervous system.
That's amazing. Yeah. I do that when I run. You're a runner. I double breathe, double out, double in, double out, and I do a lot of that. And like I said, for me, deep breaths through learning how to breathe through my nose in the sauna or in uncomfortable situations helped me a lot. I haven't got into that strict of breath work, but I'm gonna look into that. I think that's good. I do, like I said, I do it with meditation, but I don't do it to where I'm that intensely focused on it. I like that idea. I'm going to try it.
Yeah, I'm going to send you this guy's link, JP.
Please do.
And people need to watch they already would have before this aired, but I'll send you that as well. He's a Boston guy, but he moved out to LA, became friends with, he was the sobriety coach to the Stars, total character. And he's phenomenal. And so that is a great hack. And then I always say cold shower finishes. That's my number one cravings overcomer and mood enhancer and way of doing the work, because you embrace discomfort every day. Yeah. So
I'm not gonna lie to you, Brian. I'm not gonna do that, but I heard it's good.
You're one of those. It's either one way or the other.
I've done. Look at me wrong. I've done it before. I've done it a lot. I used to take ice baths a lot. I did the whole cold shower thing. But we all find what works for us. And I'm done with the cold shower stuff. So, but I think it's good for some people. And I say that because it sucks. But I think that doing things that you don't like is good. I'm a big proponent of it.
Yeah.
But at some point you can't just do everything you don't like. You got to pick and choose like a lot of stuff.
Yes.
So
absolutely. Yeah. I want to beat you up on that, but I'm not gonna, because I know especially women are very hesitant, and they say women shouldn't go below, say, 55 degrees, but it is life-changing for me every day.
Yeah.
Every friggin' day.
No, it's good. I feel better when I do it. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Amazing. I've left some of my accountability partners like depressing voice memos before going into the shower. And then I'll come out leaving them the happiest message and saying, I wish I never I said, from now on, I'm not even going to send you voice memos before I take do my cold shower. Finished. That's it. Just finished. But no, where I'm going is that you're right. You pick choose your hard and choose your hard work. I now say, hey, especially women, if you're not going to even consider the cold shower finish, then the breathing work is so key, but it's tough to make yourself take the time. And I know, especially mothers, how busy they are, but if you can find the time, it's life-changing because of the mind-body connection. Embodiment is so powerful. You also discuss that in your book. So let's get back to that. When you were battling your tumor, talk about what you did there.
In terms of when
kind
it
of
happened,
the mirror box technique, if you will. You referenced that author.
Dr. Joe Dispenza, right? Yeah.
And there's another one. And sorry, I'll jump in. This Dr. Subramanian. He's an Indian neuroscientist.
Yes.
Yeah.
The phantom pain. Yeah, that's connected together. So I got the idea. You get to a point where you face so many problems that don't have a lot of answers to, right? Like that's terminal uniqueness. What's so funny is that, God had to make me completely unique for me to realize that I'm not different or not special. You know what I mean? That's just the irony of my life. And that's a great part, right? So I had this brain tumor that happens 0.001% in adults a year. It's so rare. It happens more common in children, and that's what I do now with my therapy dog, is visit children, because that's I imagine, I know what I went through, but helping them is a big deal. And we can talk about that later. But the point is that I had this type of tumor that and the side effects that I had, and I was a pro athlete and at 27 years old. I had 0 points of reference. There was nobody in the world that was going through what I was going through. And that, you never felt so, it didn't feel so good to be different then, and special. But I just didn't have any, and I had to find, and for a while I just turned to opiates because I just was so depressed about it. And then it got to a point where I had to do something different or I had to die, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it myself. I wanted to live, and so I started to find these creative solutions. And one of them was, I learned how to meditate and do these things. And then I learned from that neuroscience doctor that about phantom pain. And somebody that loses their arm or their leg, they still experience the nerve pain or they still feel that it's there. And I read about it, and it fascinated me because I had just complete numbness all over my fingertips and my anterior tibialis, your front shin muscle, the jumping muscle. That was completely numb, and my toes were completely numb. And at the same time, they were feeling like needles were stabbing me all over every time I tried to right? We have those neural pathways where we send, the neurons from our brain to our body to move, right? Those motor neurons. And so every time I sent that signal to my hands, or I sent that signal to my feet to move, it would be a sharp pain that would hurt me. And I didn't know how to deal with it. So I thought, hey, maybe, right, a lot of those nerves were dead. Maybe if I sit there in meditation and focus on it, and I focus really hard and I send those signals without moving, maybe I can get some feeling back. And that's what I did. I would sit in it, and I would analyze. I would picture the pinky toe, like what it does to move and touch the ground, and then I'd do the next toe, what it does to move. And I would sit there for hours and just focus on creating that in my mind, and it would be so painful. Like I said, the first couple of times I did it, I would pass out and I'd wake up like 10 minutes later. But I would do that so slowly. Then I would, after I did each one, then I would create the movement patterns that I would as your foot would walk, because I couldn't do that anymore. And then once I started to do that, I started to get some feeling back. Then I would go into the weight room, or I'd go outside and walk, and I'd try to simulate those patterns again and reteaching myself how to do that. And I did that for years and hours, and slowly it started to work. And I got that from that doctor, but I also got it from Dr. Joe Dispenza when he got in his accident, and he smashed his spine. He crushed his spine. He got hit by a car, and he chose not to do the rod surgery. He chose to heal himself on his own. And what he would do is he would recreate healing of his spine by recreating it in his mind. And I got that idea by doing that. So those combination of those ideas, and it was just, I became open and willing to try things differently, because I got to that point where I was willing to do something different. And so I kind of did that on my own, and it worked. I don't know how it worked. I don't have science behind it, but it worked for me. I got about 75% feeling back in my fingers and toes.
That is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. Yeah, it's one of those guys that they couldn't move, basically. And so for 3 hours a day, he would meditate.
Yeah. And he would meditate and rebuild his spine back, and he is way more disciplined than I was, but it's an amazing story. He's incredible, and he's a great guy. He's awesome. I still find it hard to, like you were talking about earlier, that terminal uniqueness. I still find it hard to follow people, and because I always think my story is the best, right? So I got to get over that ego and get over those things, and look into other people to help me. So, But
yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And that whole, people should look up mirror box therapy and the whole phantom limb thing.
Oh, it's really interesting stuff.
I read a study. I wish I refreshed on it, but it was something like where people, they taped up their hands and as if they were injured, but they had half of the study group visualize their hands essentially still moving, whereas the other half didn't. And those people who just visualized them still moving had way more health in their hand once they essentially untied.
Exactly. What all that did is it taught me the power of the brain, right? It taught me the power of the brain. And learning all about that, it inspired me to learn it and realize, neuroplasticity I talk about, right? We have that ability to build those neural pathways, no matter how old we get. We have the misconception that we get older, we lose that, but we can still create those things, and empowered me to learn more and to learn more about my issues and to learn more about myself and give me hope, right? So I think that's a big part of it. Just like with any addict wants to learn more about their situation, or anybody who has chronic pain, or anybody who's dealing with a problem that doesn't have a lot of straightforward answers. There's always a solution. And that's why the most important thing about my story is it was always the stories of other people, like those the doctors there going through these unique and insurmountable odds that helped me the most, because their story is not exactly like mine, but their stories helped me engineer a creative solution to my problems. And it's always like, rarely did I walk out of a therapist's office. I've been to a lot of therapy. I've been in more therapy than I care to admit. I've been into all kinds of therapy, I've been in every type of therapy, but it helped. I don't disagree. I don't discredit therapy, but rarely did I walk out with as much hope as I did from hearing the story of somebody else who's gone through those things. So that's the whole point of my story and sharing these things, is I hope that I give somebody the hope that and the help that the way that other people did for me.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. This would be a good ending point, but definitely need to touch on some more stuff. Yeah. That you talked about, all the desirable characteristics you so desperately wanted were within you all along. You didn't need to search outside yourself to find them. You just had to show up and trust in your abilities. And that goes hand in hand with what I just realized about being dependaholics. And I said, the substance that I now depend on to bring out that strength is me. I'm a cappyholic.
Yeah.
And you also talk about, like our brains, there's plasticity in our character, meaning whatever you've done or whatever has happened, there's still time for redemption and change if you choose to seek it, right? I mean, you're a whole different person now. That's what's so fascinating about your book.
Thank you. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think we always, and that's like I said, I tell that you have the unique chance for redemption, because those who have been to the bottom, those who have seen the worst in themselves, have the best chance to change, and the best chance to see themselves in that light. Because most people don't get a chance to see themselves at the worst point of their lives, and to see what they can become and know what they can do, what they're capable of, and want to change and want to be better.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. So on that note, I believe you're a single man. I'm going to compare it to myself. We sound similar in terms of, I've been kind of hopelessly single majority of my life. I was actually married for 2 years to my first long-term girlfriend. Common first marriage. We just had no chemistry. We were more like roommates. So we got divorced. That was like 25 years ago. And I've had a couple long-term girlfriends, but pretty much hopelessly single ever since. Much of it because of, my drinking. I just couldn't be in a healthy relationship and now I think I'm ready for one if I could ever, overcome my ADD issues and get out of the house. So, but you talked about how your peers from college or athletes, Olympians, lawyers, businessmen, getting married, having lives, and in the throes of your addiction, you were broken and alone. Now you're repaired, but I imagine, like me, I say now I'm never lonely. I might be alone, but I'm filled with so many wonderful thoughts in sobriety. I'm never lonely.
Yeah.
But I would love to have, a healthy relationship, which I know you found in your dog. So why don't you touch on all of that,
so sure.
including the dog.
Yeah, I'll get into that. Just to answer your question, though. Or to expand on what you're saying, absolutely. You're talking about the difference between isolation and solitude, right? Right. You're not isolated anymore. You're in solitude. Once you learn the difference, is that you learn how to be with yourself. Yeah, sure. I'm single as well, but for me, the most important thing is now I know what I want. I know what I'm looking for. I mean, I just got to find somebody that can stand me for more than 45 minutes. But other than that, but I know what I want, what I expect, and what I'm looking for. And I'm willing to wait for it. I'm willing to let it happen. I'm not willing to push it just to get into something just to fill my loneliness, right? Because I'm okay with being me. I'm okay with being alone. I'm okay with being myself. I can sit in my own thoughts. I can live on my own, and I can take care of myself. And I don't need somebody else. I would love somebody else. My house would be a little bit neater, and I have a little bit more organization. But I don't need it, right? And loneliness is not a state of mind for me anymore. And I do have all my dogs and stuff too, which is nice. But yeah, I have 3 dogs now. But my one therapy dog, Lingo, I met him at the hardest part of my life, and he inspired me to change because, I had all these bad things happen to me: losing my baseball career, addiction, and then brain cancer. Like those were my 20s, just my 20s right there, and all in a row. And then. This dog came into my life, and he was like the first good thing to happen to me. And he was in the Army, and for me to keep him in my life, I had to change, because if I wanted to keep him coming over, I had to get better and work on myself and to improve. And I did that, and then I was able to officially adopt him, and I promised that I would continue his work as a therapy dog to help other people in the way that he helped me. And so we started when we moved to Ohio. We're part of the Pet Pals program at University Hospitals. And as I mentioned with my brain tumor, it was very rare in adults and more common in children. And I knew what I went through, but thinking of an innocent kid, that's what really stuck with me, because there was culpability into my tumor. And I touch on it, is that in my desperation to fix my arm, I misused human growth hormone and other anabolic steroids that most likely caused my tumor, without any medical supervision. So there was some culpability into what I did, but I thought the innocent kids. So when we started visiting the cancer centers and seeing the kids, the impact that I was making, it it changed the way that I view the world. It did, helping other people and putting myself back into that hostile environment for me in the hospital, and just, seeing the difference that I was making these kids and their families. And it made me think of my family, and it just changed the way that I thought. And those thoughts were difficult to have, but I can only have them to change when I help somebody else without the expectation of something in return. And what it's turned into for me is visiting. I visit the adults now, and they see me, they hear my story, and they know what I've gone through. And I think that it gives them hope, and not only that the situation that they're in right now, they can get through it, but they can thrive afterwards. Cancer's not just the end of their life. They can get through it. They can get over it. They can get past it. And it's helped me beyond belief. And my dog's been a big part of that. And so I got a couple other dogs now, and they have a big property out in Ohio. And so I'm definitely not alone, but yes, I've made a long way around it. Yeah. I wouldn't mind a girlfriend. Yeah. Okay.
No, good answer. And my coach says to me, she says, Brian, you should get a dog. You need something to love, someone to love. But I'm so hesitant, with just variety of reasons, just worried about caring for it. I love walking a dog, although just taking the time, especially with my productivity issues, among other things. So if anything, I'm considering a cat.
A cat's not going to give you that kind of love, A cat's good. Yeah. But you know what? I like it when girls are mean to me, so I like cats too. So, but no, I recommend it, Brian. Get a, I get a dog. I mean, if you don't want the work, maybe get a little dog. That'll help you a little easier. Not have to worry about leaving it alone all the time and the exercise portion of it. But a dog saved my life. I'm always going to be a dog advocate. I'm probably going to create a sanctuary up on my property eventually. And the dogs are just amazing. Because they show you that unconditional love. They don't expect anything. They don't care. They don't care about all the mistakes he didn't care about all the mistakes that I made. I wanted to hide from the world. He didn't care about any of that. He just wanted to be with me. He just wanted to spend his time with me. And what it did most for me, Brian, is when I was with him, I wasn't caught up in the past, and I wasn't worried about the future. I was present. And I think being present it's a place where that I heal, and it's so hard to be present every day. It's so hard to be in the moment, right? I'm so caught up in all this other stuff, and I got all these things going on, and I have a crazy brain, right, that thinks about all these things, and like ADD and all that. And it's so hard for me to be present sometimes. But that's what my dog did. Whenever I was with him, I was present, and I learned so much from him, because he don't care about any of that stuff. He just wants to, spend time with me. So that's what they teach me.
Yeah, that is phenomenal. I know. Yeah, and you say on that note, being present in the moment is the place where I heal. It's where I improve myself, learn to manage my pain, and strengthen my relationship to God, which I do want to touch on if we get time. But but so I know every time I watch those Dodo videos, do you know those? Dodo. I don't know why it's named Dodo, DODO, but on Facebook and other social, they have all these great rescue videos. And every time I see one, a woman just rescued a dog from a highway median, somehow spotted the thing and pulled over and rescued it. And I think, why couldn't that happen to me? My buddy almost had to give up his cat, and I was going to take it. That's what I need. I need to fall into something rather than getting one, or I need to get one that's advanced
or go
age.
Volunteer at a shelter and see how it helps you. That's what I did.
Yes. Yeah. I think you talked about that too. How much help they need just cleaning bowls and things like that. So I should do that. I know it can be life changing. So I definitely should. By the way, I love that you said.
How about you do this and I'll take a cold shower? How about that?
We could have a deal. And funny, you just reminded me, speaking of deals, so I have had a couple long-term girlfriends, couple years that live with me. One of them, this is back in 2009, said I was giving her a hard time because she hadn't gone to the dentist in a long time. She goes, I'll go to the dentist if you get a physical. Looking back, I think maybe she wanted me to get an STD test or something just to be safe. Sure. Very safe. Thank you. So I agreed. And when I never would have signed up for a physical otherwise, I would have been in my 30s. mid to late 30s. The doctor is routinely groping me during my physical, and he says, "Hey, I feel a little mass in your testicle. It's probably just a cyst. You should go get an ultrasound." And I've since learned that's basically what they tell you, not to freak you out. But it was cancer. So I did have testicular cancer. And very luckily, can't compete with what you went through. Mine was just one and done. They removed it.
Wow.
And I got scans for 5 years. But what I wanted to talk about was before it was officially diagnosed, right? I get the ultrasound. They send it to my doctor, it was a new doctor. I had to get the special kind you need there. And the nurse is taking my measurements and all that. And she starts talking about the 5-year survival rates of cancer. So A, she's telling me I have it. And B, I'd never heard that term before. So I think she's telling me what the odds are I'm going to live for 5 years.
Yeah.
I freaked out. As you know, that just means the odds that you'll live at least 5 years and then typically well beyond. But that was a brutal way to have my diagnosis confirmed. And there's nothing as scary as hearing the C word. But
no, you're right. Well, I mean, that was a God thing right there for you making that deal. You know, who knows what happened if you didn't do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
The earlier you catch that, the better. Yeah.
Because I would have ignored the signs, I'm sure. Though I had read Lance Armstrong's book, where he, of course, being an athlete, and a lot of us have high pain tolerances, he let his go so far the thing ballooned up and eventually metastasized throughout his body. But luckily, testicular, I always say, is the jackpot of the cancers because it seems to be one of the most treatable. But I do want to touch on that. I had a buddy that almost had a widowmaker heart attack recently. He should be dead, but he luckily called his wife immediately. He was nearby, picked him up. They went to the hospital. Did you ignore the signs? I think you touched on that, but kind of ignored the signs of your tumor initially?
I did, but I couldn't. They're so bad. You know what I mean? It was so bad. Like, it was just not waking up, nodding off, just like slurring, and then sensitive to light. It was just so bad. It was just growing so fast, you know, pushing on my head. And I had a serious girlfriend at the time, and she thought I was on drugs again because I was just nodding off, and so we got in a little fight, and she dropped me off at the emergency room, you know. So thank God for that. But yeah, no, it just got to a point where after over a couple of weeks, I tried to ignore it, but it was just like my eyes would roll in the back of my head, and I would just pass out. You know, I got work, you know. So I couldn't ignore it. Or trust me, I would have. If I could have, I would have.
Right. Yeah. All right. So I guess, lucky from that perspective. But and how long have you been just in remission? Is that how you can't?
August 15th will be 11 years.
11 years. Wow. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
And now we have another thing in common. I've got the tinnitus. Seems to be one of the pronunciations.
Tinnitus,
I think we call it here. I think internationally but that's the ringing in your ears. Yeah. And so you now have that pretty badly. Is that right?
It's better now. I just have constant pain in my ears. And I think that's just from nerves. I don't know what that is. I've gotten kind of used to it, but the ringing, the major blasting has stopped. Thank God. But I think I got some antivirals and some steroids that helped it. But at the time I went deaf in my right ear, and I just had this ringing that I just couldn't focus on anything. And they told me that it might be permanent. And I was like, man, this is worse than the cancer, you know? And, but the tinnitus went away. I still have a little bit of it, but I'll take it, you know, and I have some pain in the ears, but other than that, no, it's okay.
All right. Because mine is self-diagnosed how I got it. I did confirm I have it. I sleep so hard on my temple, even on like a really good soft pillow, that it somehow triggers, it caused the tinnitus. It like the bone. I think dentists should even look further into that. So I have to sleep with a padded eye mask, and I wear a neck, neck pillow? Like you wear on planes, sleeping every night. And if I don't, I will have it severely ringing in my ears. It's brutal. And there is no cure for tinnitus, as I'm sure you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, I do know.
The struggle is real. And you also had a lot of, speaking of things in your head, like essentially voices in your head, paranoia. You might even still struggle with that now. Sadly, I have a really good friend who's been mentally ill for probably 10 years. She still pops up and emails me now and then, and I try to help her, but she has not been able to get the right help or won't get the right help. I mean, that is really, really scary, right? I mean,
I only had it for that brief time. So hasn't happened to me since or before or any of it. I just happened to be that brief time. That was why it was so crazy. I never that paranoia or that one voice and just I don't hear voices or anything like that. No, I just had that one experience, and I don't know what it was. I really don't. I was getting off a bunch of medications. I was going through, a psychotic break or midlife crisis. COVID was happening, and I don't know how to explain what it was. But yeah, no, I don't. I mean, I now I got at least some real life experience of what it's like, and it's terrible. But I fortunately ever since then I haven't had to experience that.
Wow. Yeah. It's very lucky. And it's crazy how a normal mind that can happen. It can happen. You have to seek help for it, but it's just amazing.
I wouldn't call my mind normal, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, I know.
Well, and you struggle the same thing with I do, that, you say there's a huge difference between cocky and confident, and, humility, you say, is an ugly color on you, but you got to wear it because it's attractive to others, right? I struggle.
Yeah.
I found in recovery, I gained a lot of humility. And when I share, I'm very humble, but then as I gain confidence, kind of approach that fine line, which you say is a myth, but I would like to say it's just sober confidence. People can even mistake sober confidence as cockiness. I've actually seen a meme about that, but the struggle to project humility is real, right?
Sure. And I know that. And I always find that I don't, right? I'm kind of a stuck up jerk, even at the gym and other places and everywhere that I go. But when I speak and I share my story and I speak in front of lots of people, I'm as humble as it gets because I'm taking responsibility and I'm admitting my things. And then I'm humble in my deeds. I'm humble when I go help people or when I do things and I put myself in positions to where I share when I talk. So oftentimes, all the time, I get people that, oh, I didn't even realize that about you. Or when they see something about me or they see my stuff on the internet or things like that, it just changes the way that they view me and think about me when the person that they know without seeing me. So I get judged all the time, and I'm okay with that because that's the way that I am. I have that energy, I have that ego, I have those things, and that's who I am, and I keep that. But at the same time, is I don't then act upon it, because when I'm out in public, I put things away, I clean up after myself, I do things right, and I treat strangers with respect and all those things. I do all those things that are humble, but then my energy and the way that I look may come off in another way, and that's okay because I don't care what they think, right? And so it's more for me about with my actions, and that's part of me about who I am. I don't want to change who I am, but at the same time, I want to. I think you got to find that balance.
Yep. Yeah. And I love it. I wanted to close with, you talk about, remember your self-worth comes from within. No amount of attention or validation from others will satisfy you. And constantly seeking the approval of others will lead to self-doubt and loneliness. The person you spend the most time with is you. Get to know yourself, the real you, which is something you'll do in recovery, constantly saying, who am I? Can't believe I just did that. You will surprise yourself. And as I said, you're so much stronger. We're all so much stronger than we give ourselves credit for. And you've also inspired me. I've got to really step up my game with my business and devoting time and resources and money to it. And you say, never be afraid to fail. Take risks. Risk everything if you must, if you believe it's the right thing to do. And that's what I'm prepared to do. So very inspiring.
Me too, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you did you have any additional thoughts or things you wanted to share or promote what have you?
Yeah. I just, I love it. If anybody wants to reach out to me, my website is www.michaelbugary.com. There's a way to send me an email on there. And if you have any questions about anything, or want to have a conversation, want me to speak, get my book, whatever it may be. Another reason why I wrote this book and the things that I do is I want to have those deeper conversations, those conversations about things that internally that we're afraid to face sometimes. I was so afraid to face those things, and it kept me sick for such a long time. And I didn't realize the power of getting it out there and sharing with somebody. And that's why in AA they say the 4 steps so important, right? Of sharing, putting inventory and sharing it out to somebody else. But I wanted to show you that, hey, look, I had all these successful things and I had all these good things. I had all this promise, but look where it took me. It can happen to any one of us at any point, and I'm not special or different. I am the same. And yeah, so please, if you have any questions or anything, reach out to me. My book is also on Amazon. It's The Disease of Me: How Losing My Professional Baseball Career, Drug Addiction, and Brain Cancer Saved My Life. It is available on Amazon ebook, and then I'm on Instagram, Bugary, and I think I just joined the TikTok. The TikTok, right? Just started that, and amongst other things. So please reach out to me. I'm working hard to share my message and doing what I can to help other people.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's Bugary, Bugary, but we'll have that all in the show notes for sure, your links. And I can't recommend the book enough, The Disease of Me. And great stuff. Congrats. How far you've come, Michael, and sky's the limit. So
thanks, Brian. You too. I love where you're at too.
Thanks. I appreciate it. And I honestly would love to keep in touch. I'm definitely going to stay on you about my neuropathy remedies. And
yes, I'll add you on Facebook, and we'll share some contact information, and we'll go from there. Right. I look forward to staying in contact with you.
Great stuff. All right. Well, thanks all as always for listening and or watching. And as always, please like, share, subscribe, submit a quick rating. Takes 2 seconds on Apple or Spotify. And stronger, sober. All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching.